Welcome to Fireside Chats. I'm Brad, and I am excited to be your host today. We are living in unique circumstances with safer at home measures because of COVID-19, and there's all sorts of anxious things in the news and on social media. And so, what I wanted to do was bring some meaningful conversations to encourage you, inspire you, help you, maybe even help cause you to laugh along the way. Today is going to be an exceptional episode. So I just want you to trust me and go ahead and hit that share button. If you're on Facebook, share it with all of your friends. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that share link, put it on the different platforms you want to share it with, because today I'm talking with my friend, Chloe Poole. Chloe, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Brad. I'm so excited to be here.
Chloe
And
is,
I have to say, I'm digging what you're wearing today.
you know what? There's no sports, and so I'm going to wear sports. I'm going
Yeah,
to imagine, the
yeah.
NFL draft's coming
RIP.
up. By the way, was at the NFL draft last year. How about that
No.
in Nashville?
What? And
Um,
you didn't invite your friend? So
sorry,
expensive.
it was too expensive. It was a trip for one. Technically, it was
Fair.
a business trip that happened at the same time the NFL draft, and I may have spent the evening at the NFL draft instead of
Oh,
going to the
such
conference.
a good decision.
But Chloe, I'm so glad that you're here. Chloe is a communications manager, so she's great at all things social media, words, etc. But Chloe, help our viewers know a little bit more about you. Give us like a 30-second bio.
Yeah, so I grew up in Knoxville in a family of six. I have a younger brother and two older sisters. And like Brad said, I do communications for First Utility District in West Knoxville, and it's tons of fun, social media, community outreach, really cool stuff like that. I also have been part of Fellowship Church for 5 years and had a really awesome opportunity to do the internship for young adults. So that was 2018, 2019. And I've also played drums for 20 years. So
That's
30
awesome.
seconds.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. Drummer, ministry, communications for utility district, and you're going to get to hear from her alter ego in just a bit. But before I
Yeah.
tease that out, today's going to be a great episode because Chloe has such broad range. We're going to hit three big topics. We're going to talk about what it's like to be safer at home when you're single. I am a married man. I've got 4 crazy children and a dog. And so safer at home for me doesn't mean isolation the same way it does for other people, because there's people all around my house. And but for millions of American singles, safer at home can create a much more isolating feeling. And that is not just a COVID-19 thing. Sometimes loneliness can creep in there. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But Chloe also is pretty good at managing her money. She fits into that demographic that we like to talk about so much, called the millennials. And she's going to give us some good advice for millennials who might be a bit anxious right now with the economic uncertainty that's going on, about how to think about your money. And then last but not least, in our third segment, Chloe has an alter ego known as Sports Chloe, and she's going to give us some hard-hitting sports commentary. So, Chloe, are you ready for this?
I am. And the reason Sports Chloe comes at the end is so you all can mentally prepare. Just get ready. Get ready. It's something
So,
else.
go ahead, brace yourself, get some Advil,
Huh?
maybe a little Bengay, and just
That's a great suggestion. Love
yeah,
it.
it's going to come at you hard. I've already been previewed, so here we go. All right, so here we go, Chloe. Now look, you're single. No Beyonce, single lady, no Beyonce, pun intended. You're a single young adult, and I was surprised the other day. I looked up the research. According to the U.S. Census, 45% of Americans are single. That's 110 million people in our country. That kind of blew me away. The single population is significant, and there's things I really should know about my single friends, my single neighbors, my single coworkers. So this is kind of a two-part first question. What should I know that maybe as someone who for the last 20 years hasn't experienced single life, what do I need to know?
Yeah.
What do I need to be empathetic about? What do I need to understand? And then, man, this safer at home reality that we're facing right now, trying to flatten the curve of COVID-19, prevent the virus, It's sent many of us home to work or do education, and we're doing Zoom calls like this.
Oh my gosh,
But for
so many Zoom
many,
calls.
yeah, so many Zoom calls. This is like my fourth one of the day. But man, so that can be a different experience for someone who's single and
Yeah.
alone in their home or apartment, whatever it may be. So start us off. Tell me what I need to know about single folks in America, which apparently is roughly
Yep.
half our country.
Yeah, I know those numbers are just higher than you'd think. But yeah, you actually hit on one by saying, right now you're home and you're with all your kids. And that totally has its own challenges. I would say for single people, it's just the challenge of physical proximity and really just not having people around. I even just think of how even things like physical touch, biologically, it's important for people to experience affection and closeness to someone and have someone physically within their space. So I would say in general, that can be a need that goes unmet in single people's lives, but especially right now, that can be one. And it's one I think that they underestimate. I think a lot of people, they're either not aware of it or when they start to sense it, we're such an individualistic culture that it's almost like people feel kind of bad that they need close proximity to
Yeah.
people. So,
How many people do you think are just now discovering, wow,
oh,
I actually need to be in proximity, kind of a spiritual term those of us in the church world use as a sense of community. How many people are just now being exposed and discovering that they need it?
yeah, I bet it's a lot because we are such a digital age. And so I think people forget that there is still so much value to it until it's completely stripped away. I was talking to a single friend of mine the other night, and he said, I will never again take advantage of the fact that I can have closeness with people actually being in the same room with them. And this is a guy who he will call his friends, he'll do all the Zoom things, all those, ways that we're trying to meet our needs, but some of those needs just you can't do it without having that physical proximity.
Well, if you think
Um,
about it, I'm a pastor, so I've probably done 100 weddings in the last 5 years,
hmm,
which is probably a little bit above average. I would say these days, I don't have the exact data. This is anecdotal, but about 1/3 of the weddings I do, the relationship began on eHarmony or it began digitally.
yeah,
And
yep,
so it's interesting that the technology of those types of relationship finding networks are designed to put you into proximity with someone. The goal isn't to stay on the website, but it's to have dinner with somebody, to go on a
yep,
walk with somebody, to go to a football game with someone. Um, Proximity really matters.
it really does. Yeah. Another thing I've been thinking about, especially during this time, is when all this COVID-19 social distancing, when all of that kind of came onto the radar, people really tried to kind of narrow down who are the essential people in my life because I don't want to be unwise and have too much contact with people. We're trying to narrow things down. But for singles who maybe they moved to Tennessee for a job or they're new to town, they might not have essential people that are in their lives right now. They might not have family in town. They might not have really made close friendships yet. So just remembering that some single people might not feel like they're part of anyone's quarantine family per se.
Yeah.
And even I've got friends who said that something, basically they just said a meaningful thing that someone did for them is just to say, if you need essential people or a quarantine family to kind of hang out with the next couple of weeks, we're here. And I know everyone can't do that. I think there's a lot of people who couldn't. But it does give you some interesting things to think about of, could I maybe do that for one single person who seems just a little bit detached right now?
That is such a good point. I'm going to try to find this article and drop it in the comments or in the YouTube description. But the Atlantic ran the story. It's one of the most brilliant articles I've read in a long time about the failure of the nuclear family. And the premise of the article was since 1965, we're really seeing a failure in family construction. And the primary reason it cited was is for the first time in human history, not just recent, but in human history, families are more isolated than ever because
Yeah.
your extended family, grandma, grandpa, cousins, brothers and sisters, we're spread all over the country. We grow up, we go off to college, we get a job at Chicago or at Atlanta or wherever.
Oh yeah.
And all of a sudden we're alone. And man, for singles, like the exponential impact of that has to be significant. That's something I haven't even thought of. That's a really helpful thing. And I had a single mom say to me once, I thought, man, these are just things I don't think of. She says, people reach out to me a lot at Thanksgiving and Christmas because it's kind of pre-programmed in our social charity to think about folks at Thanksgiving and Christmas. But I would really just love to come to a barbecue on Memorial Day.
Yeah, yes. And even if you think about it in terms of the church, spiritual family, when it comes to kind of biblically how we think about these things, it is supposed to, and there's times where the Bible almost makes it trump our physical family. So I think, especially as the church, it's just important to think about, are we really taking that seriously and really welcoming people into our new family?
Yeah, it would be really helpful for modern privacy fence suburbanized Americans to reread the Bible through and to put our American Western lens down and look at the call to hospitality.
Yeah, 100%, Brad. And the thing is, I need to do that too. As far as hospitality, I've got to grow in that too. So it's something that we all are working on together.
Yeah, that's so good. I really got pierced a few years ago. I invited my staff over for dinner one night and had a young single guy on our team. And he came in and he goes out on my back patio and he says, why do you have so many chairs in your house? And I said, well, I got family and people come over. And then he said, oh yeah, it's been so long since I've been invited into a house. I forgot what it was like.
Oh, wow, Brad.
And it stunned me. I said, oh my gosh, like I need to be more intentional about inviting non-nuclear, whatever, stereotype folks. Like I need to broaden the net. Like for a 25-year-old young man to say, I'm just not in the house of families. Man, we are robbing ourselves of what he has to offer, and we're robbing him of what we could extend to him.
Yeah, I love that. Well, just know it's really awesome that you're even thinking about that, because I think if all of us can just expand our horizons, even for me to think about what are the challenges that you're facing as a dad right now. I'm experiencing isolation. You're probably like, I would love just a moment to breathe for a second, because you've got so much going on with your family.
Yeah, I would like for my kids, this really happened. I was on a Zoom call yesterday and one of them punched the other in the face, busted his lip, knocked his tooth out. And so I literally said to the people on the Zoom call, I'm just going to need a moment, y'all, to handle this. So just carry on without
Oh
me.
my gosh.
I hear you. And that's so insightful. Any other thoughts about safer at home and single right now? Advice maybe from some of your friends?
Yeah, well, so on a personal note, the first question I asked myself is, what are my tendencies when I'm isolated? And I just called a friend and told her that. And for me personally, I tend to numb out. So I'll watch a lot of TV. I'll just do distracting things to distract from stress and big decisions and things like that. But I've really been thinking about the question of, what does it look like to take our own relational needs seriously, because they are serious. God gave them to us. He hardwired us with them. And it's been really sweet. I've reached out to a lot of just different single friends and have asked, like, what are you doing right now? And what are some strategies that are working for you? And I kind of picked a couple of key themes to just talk about. One of my friends, and I thought this was brilliant, she just called one of her other single friends and said, can I come live with you until this is over? So I have a housemate, so I'm not totally alone. But if I was, man, that is just such a great idea to just say, hey, you can tell me no if you need to, but what if I just came and lived there, or you came and lived here?
Yeah.
I just think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
That's so good. Can we walk on the opposite side of the road together and just be together in some ways?
Yes.
That's
Oh
that's
yeah.
that's that's such a good point. Yeah, we need it, and I love what you're saying. A wise man once said, there's this topic called self-care, caring for your soul. That when you do that right, you're actually caring for those around you, because
Oh my gosh,
for you to
yes.
serve others well, to be a good friend, to be a
Mm.
good life group disciple maker, you need to care for yourself well.
Yes.
And I have a tendency, and I'll just admit this because I'm an Enneagram 3, to want to be the superhero and perform well. And some of us, like, who want to solve all the problems right now, just might need to admit that we need help too, and we just need some friends.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. I would also say some of my friends who realize, wow, I need to be careful about making sure these deep relational needs get met. Man, they've come up with just some super creative stuff. I have a friend who she and her friends took a baking class, and then every night they would get on Zoom and bake an entire recipe together, just as like a quality time sort of a thing.
That's
And then
brilliant.
tonight I'm playing Jackbox party games with some friends, and it's going to be a lot of fun. I did it with my family a week ago, and it was just so much laughter. Seeing people laugh at the different things that people were saying as their answers, it was just a lot of fun. So there are some creative things to do. I think it just takes saying, okay, what are those things? How am I going to make the most of those connections right now?
And the other thing that I'm hearing you say is a little bit of effort, because
Yes.
you're going to
Oh,
have
yeah.
to shut Netflix off, and you have
Yeah.
to call and say, "Hey, let's get two or three, four of us to do this. Let's play
Yeah.
some Pictionary. Let's bake a pie on
Yeah.
Zoom." And it feels silly, but hear me. This isn't normal. The world we're living in right now, and so
No,
we
it's
need to do
not.
some silly things. Some silly things
Yeah.
would be really good,
Yes, 100%.
man.
The last thing I'll say that has helped me personally. So I'm an Enneagram 9, which means I thrive just vibing at home, no structure, no responsibilities. So for me, and probably a lot of people out there, just having some structure is super helpful. I have a walk that I plan at 5 o'clock every day. Every day, I call a friend and go on a walk. I have been trying to explore like what is it like to serve during this time.
Mm.
So like virtually hanging out with my friends' kids and stuff like that. So yeah, just being able to ask what, even though all my structure hasn't pulled away, how can I still do the things that are helpful for me that keep me in a healthy place?
Man, that is so wise. Good structure, taking care of your needs, finding ways to serve.
Yes.
Man, single, married, whatever the case may be, I encourage you to go back and rewind and listen to this. This is really brilliant and super helpful, Chloe. Let me transition us here.
Yeah.
So, people are losing their jobs. People
Yeah.
are fearful that they might lose their jobs. You know, this, uh, if you're a restaurant owner, if you are in the restaurant industry, a server, uh, all sorts of different ways, the economic certainty of our time is creating anxiety. And you think about people like yourself, you're early in your career. I don't know, maybe you're just brilliant and you've somehow or another managed to create an incredible nest egg already. But most people, like in the first 2 years, 3 years of their career, don't have a nest egg, and they're just trying to get a leg up. And there's probably some economic uncertainty out there amongst millennials. Talk to us a little bit about how you yourself are maybe thinking about finances, trying to be wise, trying to, think proactively and not have to react in a few months. What kind of money tips would you give us?
Yeah, so the first thing is I think a lot of money anxiety comes from the fact that we personally know that we have not created any sort of a plan. So there's just something daunting about the unknown of would I even know what to do? So for those who maybe are tempted to just ignore it until it happens, just trust. Brad is much older and much wiser, and I think he'd agree with this. You're not much older. You're like
I
5
don't want to
years
say
old.
anything, but you heard Chloe
He's like
say
70, everyone.
much,
Brad's like
way
70.
old, so much older.
Super, super old. Um, but yeah, a lot of, I think the anxiety is just knowing I don't have a plan and I need to work that out. So I would say when you're young, good things to do is just to say, hey, what would it take for me to create some savings? That could be maybe selling some things that you're not using anymore and just saying, wow, I at least have $1,000 to set off to the side. Because even like, did you read, I don't know if you read this, Brad, but Forbes did a study recently that said 78% of people live paycheck to paycheck. So
Mhm.
even just having some savings is a huge deal. Um, so yeah, I would say just do whatever you need to do to have some sort of emergency savings, because you will feel so much better. And also, if there's things that you could, maybe skills you could be developing, or some way to have an alternate income if you did lose your job, I think would just brainstorming those things, maybe with family or friends, I think it'll just make you feel a lot more peace to just know there is some sort of a backup plan.
That's really smart. When I was much younger, as you
I'm
so
feeling really
affectionately
bad that I told you you're much older.
no, it's all right. Well, yesterday you sent me a photo, or you told me about how when you were 10 years old, you were in all this Tennessee Titans gear, and it occurred to me, well, when I was 20 years old, the Tennessee Titans didn't exist yet. So
Oh, were they the Oilers?
they were the Houston Oilers back when I was like still in
Yes.
college. So, but whatever. But Chloe, you are so right. So let me just chime in a couple of things. One, some of us are finding a little extra time on our hands, and this
Mm,
might be a good time to sit down at the table, pull out a spreadsheet, and actually think about making a budget. And so let me give you, Chloe, I'm going to give it to you, and you can pass this around. When I
yeah.
do any kind of financial advice, and I'm not a financial planner, so I don't tell people where to invest or any of those things. But my number one piece of advice for people who are entering on the early part of their career is this: is every time you get a raise, never increase your lifestyle by more than 50% of
Oh,
the raise.
yeah, that's so smart. In fact, millennials are so about experiences that we just waste a lot of money on things that, and again, I mean, if you have it and it's something that's worthwhile to you, that's fine. But I think for a lot of us, we're realizing we might be moving into a time period where we might be needing to rethink what is essential and what are those things that are really worth spending that money. So that's such a great, yeah, that's great advice to say, yeah, you got a raise, pretend like you didn't.
Yeah. Enjoy a little bit of it. But
Yeah.
here's what most of us do is we start out in our careers and we make $40,000 in the first year. And 10 years later, we're making $80,000.
Mhm.
And we're like, I don't have any more money than I did when I was making
Yes.
40,000 because
Yeah.
we've increased our lifestyle by 40,000.
Yes.
But what if you just increased your lifestyle over that time by 20,000, and you did
Yeah.
enjoy it and you did move into a house, but you were banking $20,000 a year because you could.
Yeah. I
That's
love that.
possible. Yeah. So
Even I have an account that I got a raise and I just started sending it to that account so that I didn't notice I had it. And I mean, in the back of my mind, I know it's there, but psychologically, it just helps to open my one of my accounts and to say, oh, okay, I don't have extra money to spend this month. So even just things like that, I think can really help.
yeah, that's so helpful. And listen, I know if you're watching this and you're young, you don't have you might not have a lot to put together. Just start creating the discipline, because
Yeah.
I know I know everybody hears this and people are tired of hearing it, but I know you're joking about our age difference. But like, I remember yesterday being 28, and 12 years goes by, and all of a sudden you're 40, and you're like, whoa, average lifespan for an adult male is 79. I've crossed the 50% threshold. I need a plan yesterday,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
now. So make a plan today. I love that. Such good advice. And one of the things that I think we miss in this moment is we don't just make a financial plan to make sure we can take care of ourselves, even though it's important, especially if people are counting on us, but so that we can be generous. Like
yeah.
right now would be a great time. I guarantee you there's people watching this right now that wished they had more margin to give to help vulnerable
Oh, yeah.
people, but it's tied up in credit card debt, or an expensive car payment, or whatever it is. It's not just about saving for yourself, but it's also about freeing yourself to be generous to others.
Yeah, and I would also challenge my young friends who don't feel like their jobs are in danger. If that's you, just be considering those people who they are feeling the pressure. And if there's ways you can help them, that's awesome. That's the body of Christ.
Yeah, that'd be good. And if you don't need a haircut, just pay somebody for a haircut they didn't give you because they can't give them right now, or whatever it might be. All right, Chloe. This has been so helpful. I can't wait for segment 3. I hope people have kind of got emotionally prepared. I'm ready to hear from Sports Chloe.
Oh, I am ready. And listen, Sports Chloe has not been able to do her thing for a long time. So my opinions today are going to be as outlandish as ever.
I can't wait to hear you bring
That's
your
what we're waiting
passion.
for.
So
Yeah,
you've
I need
got
to know, are you
three.
ready for this?
Listen, I was born ready for this. I've got my Under Armour
That's a
dry
strong
fit
thing.
on. I've got my Titans hat on.
Okay, we will.
I exercised this morning, hit the weights a little bit.
Wow,
So I feel
wow.
like I'm prepared. I want three hard hitting sports take. Go.
Okay, so in true Tennessee fan, true form, being as optimistic as ever, here's what I'll say about our upcoming season. So, one of our recruits recently said, bowl game last year, playoffs this year. Now, do not laugh. Regular Chloe would laugh. Sports Chloe is not laughing. She is very serious about this. Here's the thing 2017, Georgia went to the playoffs, and they had two specific things. They had a true freshman quarterback who was amazing, and they had Jim Chaney in his second season. What does Tennessee have this year? We have a true freshman quarterback in Harrison Bailey, and we have Jim Chaney in his second season, which means this is totally feasible. Brad,
Chloe,
would you agree?
Chloe, that was better than anything the talking heads at ESPN or FS1 ever wanted to bring. I don't care if you were Shannon, whatever his face is, or what's the guy who's always yelling and arguing. That was better than PTI. I don't know how much rational sense that makes, but it spoke to my heart, and I'm jumping on your bandwagon, and I'm agreeing with you.
Do it. It is going to happen.
Big Orange in the college football playoffs. And let's just take a moment of silence. Dear Lord, please let us have college football this year in Jesus' name. Amen.
Maybe so.
All right. Take two.
All right. Second opinion. So this upcoming season, Tennessee Vols only have one returning assistant coach on the defensive side of the football. And here's the thing. They've switched a couple things around. They've hired a couple people. And I'm a little bit worried about them because they are so desperate. They have hired a coach named Shelton Felton. Brad, I just think that's the one thing that I think just does not bode well for us. Shelton Felton.
So Chloe, I don't mean to point out connecting factors and logic, but the first opinion was about how we're going to the playoffs.
We are.
And then in your second opinion, you introduced we have an entirely new defensive staff and a coach named Shelton Felton. And I feel like we just lost a little steam on opinion number one.
Have you ever seen Remember the Titans? That is exactly what they pulled off. I'm being realistic here. Okay. But I know it's also going to happen.
All right. So side point, favorite character on Remember the Titans, spontaneous go.
Louis Elastic, all the way. All the way. But also Cheryl is me.
Okay.
Like I actually might have played her. I'm not going to confirm or deny.
Is your other name Hayden? Oh, I love it. I love me some Remember the Titans, and if you throw shade at Remember the Titans, I will track you down and harm you. All right, Chloe.
Left side.
Strong side. Attitude reflect leadership. All right, let's. We can't quote the movie. There's probably some sort of copyright law we're breaking right now.
True. Oh gosh.
All right. Bring us home. Give us your third hard-hitting sports take.
Yeah. Well, first, RIP Olympics 2020. Brutal. I've been looking forward to this all year. And so has Simone Biles. The 23-year-old is devastated that the 2020 Olympics are off. And she was recently quoted to have said, I haven't decided whether or not I will go. I really haven't decided. What? So, guys, Simone Biles might not be in the 2021 Olympics, even though she created the coolest move ever in this last year. And if that happens, Sports Chloe, it might just be the end for me.
Listen, that's such a good point. And hear me, world, for those of you who live only in the world of football or maybe a little basketball or baseball, Simone Biles is probably not just the best female athlete in many years, the best athlete, period. And she is doing stuff on the gymnastic floor that has never been done in the history of human beings.
Yes. The only person who has larger muscles than Simone Biles is me. That's it.
Chloe, I just want to say thank you for not shaming our audience by displaying those in a bragatory fashion today. I appreciate you sticking with the headshot, even if it's for my own personal ego.
Yeah.
Chloe and Sports Chloe, today has been awesome. You have brought us such great insight on being single at Safer and Home and how to think about money as a millennial. And I love your sports take. Chloe, I miss seeing you in person. I can't wait
Same, Brad.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody,
thank you.
Thanks so much for joining on another episode of Fireside Chats with Brad. We'll be back this Wednesday for a live show at lunch with Matt Schuneman, friend of mine, fellow baseball colleague, friend of mine. And we're going to talk about the best baseball lineups of all time, our favorite baseball park experiences, and any other baseball stuff that you might bring at us live. That'll be this Wednesday at noon right here on Facebook or YouTube. Until then, take care.